Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer, and right over there is John, your resident millennial. John, how are you doing this evening time?
Pretty decent, not too bad. Can't complain. Well,
Pretty.
good, but I'm not going to.
Oh, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
So, John's got issues. Sorry, John. Sorry to hear it. I see we've got a few folks showing up. Henry, of course, is first.
Naturally.
And then we have Elephant Man, both in on YouTube and in D Live. Says Henry lies. He's never first, but I
Blasphemy,
think
sir.
I
Blasphemy.
think it,
You need to cool it
the inherent nature of Henry is first.
first. Right.
It's just a part of his being. So wherever he's at, he's first. Even when he's not there, he's still
First.
first. I had to make a certain sort of peace with that myself. Um,
Yeah.
but John helped me understand, and I drank the Kool-Aid.
That's right.
But that should not dissuade you from hitting the like button, because you can do
That's right.
that, and and still be a conscientious objector
It's true.
to the firstness of Henry. So John, you could complain, but you won't, which is nice because
Yeah.
nobody wants to hear you complain.
I don't
But
think that's true.
if you wanted to complain a little, is everything okay? Are you doing all right?
Yep.
Are you bluesy here in this
No.
holiday season? Are you sad because last night I failed this last night
You did.
with the movie?
Failed.
It wasn't entirely my fault because
It kind of
nobody
was.
saw that coming, right? I mean, through three different avenues,
Yeah.
four different avenues, we attempted that,
Something
and
like that.
fucking Amazon's got their shit slick. I'm just saying, they've got it slick from the top to the bottom. Um,
Yeah. Copyright shit.
It was weird, and it's not like it was going. It's like, oh, come on. In the present day and times, if you're going to be a cunt about streaming some fucking movies, uh, come on. Because it's going to what hurt your profits. It's going to hurt your
Yeah.
profits if I stream this movie with three, four people.
Right.
Elephant Man says he's over on D Live because he would rather give lemons, and I don't mind that because I will
Yeah.
make lemonade than give a pussy
Yeah.
thumbs up. Oh, come on, you can still give the thumbs up. I mean, come on, pussy's good for everybody. You know, uh,
Yes, in fact, did you know that the most recent study that's come out says that every time you hit the like button on one of our streams, you get pussy. It's I don't know what the correlation is, but for some reason that's a thing. So if that's something you're interested in, do an experiment, give it a shot.
Saint says he enjoyed the conversation last night.
Yeah, that was
It was
fun.
good. It was a good conversation. There was
Yeah, we hung out in the Discord voice chat for a while since we didn't get to watch the movie.
things were talked about, words were said,
A lot of them, yeah.
moments were had. I see J. Edgar is also shown tonight, gentlemen. I'm sure you're using that term loosely.
Tip of my
Uh,
hat to you.
Elephant Man says I have a wife and toy. He doesn't need pussy. He's got a wife and toys. So, spoken like a true married man.
That's right. Like I don't need no pussy anymore.
Sex? I don't need sex. I got a wife and toys.
Right. That's
Oh,
good.
yeah, that's some funny stuff. Hey, so John, I want to get I asked you about something on Wednesday, and I want to get your opinion on something. I just want to talk, just ask you about it because I have some pretty strong opinions of it. But you know that I've shared the picture with you. I'll do it again because I'm that kind of guy. I'll share it for you. Then that way
Yeah.
it'll make my screen do what I want it to. Anyway, and I'll take these off and these off and turn this on. And
That's a good one too.
so
I
I'm
like
looking at
it.
this, and I'm my wife saw this and she sent it over to me, and she's like, you know, how is this okay? So I have to ask you, John, is this okay?
Yeah, I don't care.
So, but I mean, like, okay, okay, in the current cultural slash social climate, that we have these days. This is okay. I mean, it's okay if we go this route, if we do whiteface, but it's not okay to do blackface, right?
I didn't say
I just
that.
well, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm asking. So not necessarily your perspective, more of in our
Oh, the
social and
generalist
cultural
perspective. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, I mean, this is bad, right? I mean, this is not something that we should find funny. Shouldn't we like be trying to find out who this person is and cancel them? Like, is that
Yeah.
not what we're supposed to do when we see
Apparently,
this
that's
kind of
that's the
stuff?
protocol. Yeah.
I don't know. It was just a little thing. It's nothing major. It's one of those things where I'm just like, it's like if somebody calls me honky, it's okay, right? It's
I don't
okay,
care.
or
Yeah.
call me a cracker. It's okay, right? But God
Yeah.
forbid should I call them a lazy good for nothing, right?
Right.
Because those are hate words.
Every word is a hate word, Robert. Every word.
Is every word a hateful word?
Every single one.
Every one of them is a hateful word. I do have some good news from the congressional front. They managed to stave off a government shutdown for at least what was it?
That's a shame.
Uh, they a 2 day stopgap spending bill so that they could avert the government shutting down yet again. Guess what? It's another government shutdown, and if we can't approve a budget, hey,
That's lame.
is this not
They should have
becoming
shut down.
standard fare? Just becoming standard fare,
Oh yeah.
and I get that. I get why you're saying that. The spirit of why you're saying they should just shut down, but a
Hmm.
lot of people get fucked when that happens because a lot of government checks don't go out. And I'm
Yeah.
not talking about programs. I'm talking
Right.
about
Right.
employees, right?
Right.
I had neighbors during one shutdown, and she worked TSA. I've told you about this before, and
Yeah.
it was hell on her for about a month,
Sure. Well, I
wondering
mean,
what
she
was
worked at the
going.
TSA. Her whole life is hell already.
Yeah, I mean it's a it's a job, and I get it working for the government, but it's a job. Jobs are jobs, and that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
part. And the military too. If money doesn't get sent to military families, that's screwed up too. You know, just because they're in the military doesn't mean they're not living week to week, right?
Yep.
But one of the things that is at odds right now um, is another COVID-19 relief package, and they've started talking about they're trying to hammer out another one before this next recess, because if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, they recess pretty much until inauguration, right?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they've been going. Of course, they went back and forth about a stimulus package, and then everybody forgot about it right at the election, and it hasn't really been talked about for the last couple of weeks since the election, and so on. Last month, I guess now. But now they're talking about it again and trying to get one, and supposedly they have one hammered out. It's almost $1 trillion. But then, of course, now this person doesn't like this, or that person doesn't like
Hmm.
this, so they're doing this, right? But there have been some interesting takes on this, and one of those was from Rand Paul. Um, and he was on, it was this past Sunday, and he was speaking at a campaign event for Nick Freitas in Virginia. And he said this. He said, if I owned a restaurant, I'd have a whole wing for senior citizens and for anybody who is worried about getting sick. And I would say, all my servers have already had it. If I had a cruise ship, I'd hire everybody. No exceptions. Everybody would have the infection that works on the boat. So he would hire anybody that's gotten sick from coronavirus. That's what he's
Hmm.
suggesting. If you work in an industry where you're going to have front facing employees, look for people who had coronavirus. And
Hmm.
then he's like, we don't need to print more money and put it in the hands of people. Instead, we need to just open up businesses and do it smartly. You know, tell the people that are at high risk to minimize social contact. But for the
Yeah.
rest of it, just get businesses open. recommend that people hire people that have, either,
I've
you
already
know,
had it.
right, have already had it, secondary have had the vaccine, but there's no guarantee that they won't get it after having the vaccine. We don't know that yet, right? This is not nothing
Yeah,
that
fuck that.
we're not far enough into this process.
No.
But
And the cavalcade of fucking, celebrities and, politicians, showing off that they're getting the vaccine. Oh look, doing videos and stuff and be like, I feel great. I don't trust that shit at all.
well,
At all.
well,
There's a reason why they're trying to use those people to convince you.
sure, sure, and there's gonna, but there are gonna be some people who suffer very little, if any, ill effects from the vaccination. They might,
Sure.
they might run a low grade fever, or they might have a headache, So of course they're not going to go, oh, it was very difficult. There will be some people that are like, oh dear God, don't take this, you know, because this
Yeah.
isn't like the nurse that we talked about on the
Right,
show.
right.
But a lot of people are going to get maybe one or two of those symptoms, and it's not going to be a big deal, supposedly, right? But they're rushing. I think
Right. We
they've
still don't know
rushed
the
a
long term
third.
effects. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
the
third
third one on
vaccine that's been
Moderna or
rushed
something
in.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they've
see,
get yeah,
fuck that. And it's not because like I'm anti-vax, and it's not because like I think they did something to it. It's just that it didn't go through the normal process of approval for a vaccine.
right.
It was highly rushed.
Right. Well, I
So,
mean, we
yeah,
expected that to happen though. If you didn't see that
right.
coming,
Oh
you know.
no, no, we did. Yeah.
Now, I will say, on a side thread to consider, that this rushed process with the FDA, if the vaccine goes off well, as it were, if there's a positive end result in the view of the American public, or the success of the vaccine, I wonder if it'll give a new frame of thought to how quickly the FDA does approve drugs. And
That'll be shitty.
right, it could change the scope of how quickly medicine comes out and hits the market, the a lessened period of time for trials, et cetera, which could be scary in and of itself, especially at this day and age where we're getting into designer genetic drug concepts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could really fuck some stuff up. But so I can appreciate what Rand Paul said there. This approach to it. Now, one of the other things that's pointed out about this is that there's a lot of people that are sitting on a lot of money right now. They don't need a stimulus check, right? There are people who didn't even spend the one that they got before, and they've been working from home, and they've been making money and saving money and paying their bills,
Hmm.
and making extra money because they're not having these external expenses for work, and they've been able to save money. The savings market is up by like 33% in this country, right? And that doesn't
Hmm.
speak to low income households. I get it. I
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
that's not going to be all across the board. There's going to be a certain tier in our economic setup that's going to be doing that. Real quick, let's go to the chat. Elfman says, if you work for the government, are you really producing anything of value? Well, it depends on what you're doing. If they're processing your, I mean, value in the in the scope of no government minarchy, no. In the scope of taking care of necessary evils and doing certain jobs like getting you a license plate, yeah, I mean,
Ugh.
there are people that have value to their job. I mean, they serve a function to make sure you have the things you need as dictated by your governments. Right?
Hmm.
Most Fed employees are a product of government bloat. That's true,
True.
Saint. Ed says a lot of them live week to week because barely got some
Barracks
barracks
bunny
bunny
got a
got a ring
ring.
from one of them. Well, that's true. I mean,
Yeah.
but hey, the bottom line is, a lot of guys in the military like having families. They it's a lot of family oriented
Gay.
guys in the military. That's how it is. Ed Saint wants to hear my philosophy. I distilled and was spreading on Ed's podcast this morning. Oh, I want to know what that is. He doesn't tell
Yeah.
it. He
Let
doesn't
us
tell
know.
it. They didn't answer. I see Wyatt's in the house. How's it going
What's
tonight,
up,
Wyatt? Good
Wyatt?
to see you. Thanks for stopping by last night. Sorry it was such a bust. Uh,
Yeah.
he says the first vaccine in the USA was given to a black girl, I believe a nurse. That is correct. It was funny that it was a black woman. Is that ironic? Is that what's the word I'm looking for there? Just
Well,
pandering?
I think no, I don't even think it's that because I don't know what the percentages are, but it's got to be a large amount of percentage of nurses are black women.
Why?
I don't know why they just
Well,
are.
the question is, where was it given? Where was the location it was given would determine that.
That would also, yeah, have an effect. It doesn't necessarily have to be
You
pandering. It
can't
could
go
just
to. You
be.
couldn't go to. Well, you couldn't go to white bread and just and do it. You couldn't go to like some
It was probably in some city. I'll bet.
nice fancy part of some city. You couldn't really go there. You had to. You got to. You've got to make a uh, visual statement when you do it as well. You have to.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Ed says the COVID vaccine is saline solution meant to make the country open up for the Biden administration and carries a 5G tracker. Yes,
Yep, that's
we.
what I heard.
Robert thinks the government is going to cut red tape. I did. When did I ever say the government was going to cut red tape?
I think you said it was going to make it easier for pharmaceuticals to be approved by the FDA.
Oh yeah. See that's the thing. If you shorten the duration of the FDA, though, that puts more money in the government's pocket by big pharma. That opens the door for okay. How quick can we get this through the FDA? How can we
Yeah,
grease this? Uh, Why it says Amazon messed up our movie night. That is correct.
you
Thank
sure
you.
did.
That is
Yeah.
true. They suck. Ed says, "Oh wait, I think he was serious. Hold on, let me laugh even harder." No, look, look. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. The FDA, the red tape from the FDA, it harms them. I think more than it harms the American public. Um, it's because if especially if you have this idea that we want to minimize government regulation, well, they're like, hey, great, here, look, we're going to minimize some regulation on the FDA. We'll do that for you. And then again, big pharma, that's their open door. Okay, so we can get something passed this quickly if we
Yeah.
fund your naval base community in such and such a district, right? What do you need?
Looks like
Uh,
Ed's about to school you, though.
it says, you honestly think that? Let me give you a little lesson on how the FDA works.
I don't know
Uh,
how the FDA works, so
well, I know that they put a lot of stipulation on how the process by which we can get medications and certain things, a lot of medical related stuff to market. Oh, because the time drives up the bribe window. Like they're more likely to give money if it's taking longer. I see. I can
gotcha.
see that logic. I can see that. Um, but you never know. I mean, with enough, I don't know. I think it could go either way. I think it could go now. Now, but not only are there people out there that supposedly have been saving money. But have you looked at the numbers on the wealthy lately?
um, no, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I heard that a lot of wealthy people were still wealthy or more wealthy, which makes sense, right?
According to Forbes, the 2,200 plus billionaires in the world, and bear in mind that there are more than 600 of those here in the United States, uh, that collectively in 2020 have gotten approximately 1.9 trillion dollars richer collectively.
Hmm.
In the United States alone, it's almost a half a trillion dollars or more. Rough estimates are about a half a trillion. I've heard
Yeah.
it's as high as closer to a trillion. Um, that profits have gone up. Even done with calculations based off the number of employees they've had, the profits that Jeff Bezos has made this year on Amazon are are enough that he could cut every one of his employees a check for $105,000.
That's cool. Good for him.
That's fucking massive, right? Now, uh, here's a thought that somebody put out there, and I'm trying to remember who it was because I searched for the article I read, but was suggested that the the billionaires here in the United States that have cleared those profits should take their profits from 2020 alone, which would not impact their billionaire status or anything. Take the profits they've made from 2020 alone and uh, spread it out to the American public. And it would amount to like some big fat fucking checks, basically you know for every American, because it would be over well over a half $1 trillion, which is whenever they're doing one of these spending things and they're putting out the money, it's a certain number of billions. So but it was suggested. So I think I know where you go on this, but what's your thought on that? Do is that something that is ludicrous to imagine?
I don't believe the numbers. I don't believe the uh whoever was doing these calculations or whatever. I don't because I guarantee there are things that they missed, that they misinterpreted. Um, it's like when people say like, "Oh, this person, is worth $100 billion." It's like, okay, yeah, that might be true, but that doesn't mean that they have that much in their bank account, right?
Well,
So
well,
like,
their worth,
that sort of thing,
is
like where
part
there's
of it.
just right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, there could be something in there that you know, uh, they're either misinterpreting or just like not thinking through.
Well, think
But
about this. Remember, I mentioned a lot of people are saving money. Well, one of the ways that they're saving money is by investing it. And here's an example. Uh, Elon Musk, in the course of 2020, his fortune grew by $110 billion. He was at 37. He had a fortune of about $37 billion, and it's grown to about 137 billion now, or 27 billion, and it's now at 137 billion, making him third richest person in the world, roughly,
right,
because a lot of people invested. Apparently, shares of Tesla Motors have jumped up by 630% over the course of the year. So people are doing
yeah,
long-term investing, that kind of thing, with their money. So it stands to reason. Now we understand why a company like Amazon would see significant profits, and I'm really curious to see where Walmart comes out this year from a profit standpoint, because I'm imagining they should be showing some really tremendous profits, especially
yeah,
knowing, like right now, this season, this holiday season, words going around. I kind of have an inside ear. They're cutting hours at store. They're trying to reduce labor as much as possible during a time when they
hmm,
should have more people unloading, doing stocking, getting stuff out, because
yeah,
people are still coming in there buying. I understand. This store that I'm associated with and others in the market that there's information about. They are showing that their business is not or plummeting at all,
yeah,
right? Um, so, but I'm sure that you're not on board with, in any way, shape, or form, trying to find some way to, like, if there is, over a half $1 trillion sitting there in profits for just the billionaires in this country because of the pandemic, or a lot of it influenced by the pandemic, you're not in agreement that that money should be redistributed back to the American public in light of the pandemic, correct?
not by force. No, I mean if they want to do that, I mean I'm not going to stop them, but I'm not going to try and ask the government to force them to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Elf, uh, Elfman says, I can already hear the apex fallacy. Uh, Y says, Jeff Bezos' ex gave a ton of money to charity, but Jeff hasn't. Um, Elfman says fallacy. Yeah, that's a lie. If he sold off Ed's blog, Ed says if he sold off enough assets to do that, the market price for his assets would tank, and probably take the U.S. economy with him. Well, it's not saying that he would do it. It was just looking at the numbers and saying, okay, this is how much profit he's made. So that's what it would equate to. It could
Right.
break down to that much if it was split amongst his employees.
What it
You know,
sounds like is propaganda for here, continue to hate, billionaires. Look what they're doing. They have all this money and you don't. It's just, I mean, it's propaganda.
right. Well, it's a piece of propaganda that really does strike a strong chord with a lot of people right now, right? A lot of people took it really hard in the gut this year, through no fault of their own, right? Just through so many things, shutdowns of restaurants and everything that went on, it's fucked. So when you put something like this out and you talk about these things and you say, hey, look, the wealthy elite again, making bank off this. Um, it's this, it's building this economic caste system in this country. Like I don't know. I've never seen the line so clearly marked. I think in my life as to trying to turn everybody again, the poor against the wealthy. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
like it's like a very very strong battle they're fighting for the last few years. And I know a lot of it comes from the left, or most of
Yeah, I
it comes
mean
from the
that's
left, right?
specifically comes from that's a very leftist us
Um,
versus them sort of thing. Um, and obviously it's a useful tool for the puppet masters, for lack of a better word, on the left to get their people behind them. And for the average leftist, it's mostly like envy. It's mostly like I don't have that, so I don't think you should either. So we want to take it from you. Like that's what it is. I mean, they're just miserable with their own lives.
right.
Typically, of course, in generalization, you know, doesn't apply to everyone everywhere, but in general,
Well, there's a lot to be said about, you know, and I hate to use the term economic inequality in this country. Like that it's a very strong foundation for the left to make an argument from, especially when you look at the gap between cost of living and wages, that kind of thing that has grown over the years. Because it really has. I mean, you've seen it. I'm sure you've
yeah, yeah,
experienced it
yeah,
in
yeah,
your
yeah.
adult life how much the gap has grown. Um, it's easy to continue to make these arguments and compound upon them more and more. I mean, we've been talking about how much money the wealthy continue to make for years now. I mean, look at during the oil crisis. I mean, everybody went ape shit over BP because they were showing record profits during an oil increase, right? I mean, people are paying $4 and $5 a gallon for oil, and then BP comes up and it's like, oh, here's one of our highest ever profit quarters. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, hold on,
I remember paying $4 a gallon uh, and I had to use premium in the car that I had.
right?
It's four
And
bucks a gallon. It's
and
fucking
and, and I'm
ridiculous.
not going to lie to you. I truly believe that the cost of goods increased and in a certain
Right.
way during this pandemic, and it was more from the fact that things weren't on sale as much or for as much as they typically were.
Right.
I mean, it was things began costing a little bit more during the pandemic across the
Sure.
board, and that also was, I mean, shit. Look at the profits the food delivery companies are making.
Oh yeah, they are fucking killing it out there.
right?
Uber Eats and like what are the other ones? Postmates and like whatever else.
Postmates, DoorDash, Uber Eats,
DoorDash, yeah.
there's, I don't know, there's a half dozen of them. You know, it's like,
Yeah, and they're
I mean,
just
there's apps I
flooding
haven't
out
even
there.
downloaded that are doing it. It's, and it's like crazy. And the ride share company, Lyft and
Yeah,
Uber now are really really making a ton of money with the ride share thing. But these, it's like the cost of all of it has gone up, right? I've seen it across the board in almost everything that we've been doing.
yeah.
Um, you know, I even the cost of we replaced an air conditioner. And I know, looking at pricing, looking out there on the interwebs, looking at all the pricing, we were paying a premium on that air conditioner more than we probably would have were it not a year that a lot of people were at home and they were doing booming business and replacing air conditioners because of the high
Hmm.
usage. Ha ha! Well, fuck, right? So, but yeah, it's what do I don't know where is there a way? So, final question or thought for you, John. Is there a way in the libertarian world that we don't have these egregious disparities in these economic gaps, or will there always be that wealthy elite that we fear will take over because they have all the money, because the money is where the power is?
So it's kind of a loaded question, but there will always be a like a wage gap or wealth disparity, if you want to call it that. There will always be that, no matter what system you have. Even if we go full communism, there will still be people who produce more and have more. That's just always going to be the case. So yes, it will always exist, no matter what system you're under.
So is there any way to make that palatable to the general populace?
Right. Yes, there absolutely is a way, and that instead of like the doom and gloom and saying, "Oh, you poor person," um, you know, just telling people that their life isn't fair and you're just being, held back and held down. Instead of doing that, try and encourage people to do better for themselves. I mean, how many stories in this country are there of people coming from absolutely dirt poor and becoming extremely wealthy? Like that's not as uncommon as you would think. Now, of course, like the actual, coming from dirt poor and going to the top isn't as common. But how many people have moved from, the poverty level to the middle class? And we have more of that in our country than any other country in the world. We have more upward mobility than any other country. We don't talk about that because it has to be, you have to hate the wealthy because they have what you don't, and you
Well,
need to take it from them.
well, I can understand the upward mobility argument. However, I do believe that that is, in some ways counterbalanced by the rise in the poverty threshold, right? I mean, the poverty line has climbed. So, what was it now? Like, if you're making I want to say something along the lines of, if you're making under 21,000 to 24 or $21,000 a year, you're considered impoverished now. And it used to be like 12, $15,000 a year
Yeah,
30 years ago,
yeah.
right? So that number, because of the cost of living, has gone up.
Well,
And
and inflation.
and then you have to consider the number of people that fall below that line, and there's a lot of them, because when you think about minimum wage jobs in most places, minimum wage jobs
Yeah.
aren't kicking you $24,000 a year.
No, of course not.
And I mean, I think a lot of people overlook how large that sector is, even though they interact with them on a regular and daily basis. When you
Right,
go to
but
your
you're
fast food places, when you go shopping at your grocery store, when you go to a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
these places, right?
Right, but what you asked me was, how do
How do
we
right?
fix that by encouraging them to do better for themselves, as opposed to telling them that they're never
Shh.
going to be able to because those wealthy people won't let them.
Sure, I get that, to do better for yourself, but not everybody can do better for themselves. That's the
No, of course
problem that
not.
comes in, and so
Yeah, but you can't artificially, raise people up, out of poverty. That just creates more poverty every single time that happens.
and it's
Every
even
single time.
it's a little, it can also be concerning when you begin to imagine the times we're in with automation coming forward, where those low-paying jobs are low-hanging
Yeah.
fruit to be gotten rid of. So, then you're like, okay, well, upward mobility, when I think upward mobility for people like that, I'm like, okay, you're in a restaurant or you're in a supermarket, you want to work your way up into management, and from management, you can branch up into further avenues or put yourself to school with the
Right.
increased money from that position, whatever.
A lot of companies offer like almost like a scholarship. Like they'll help you pay for college. If you're at
Right.
a high enough level, you've been with them long enough, whatever. They'll help you go to school. You
But if
know.
you start taking out those, once you start losing those open doors for the underskilled or the under
Right.
experienced people to
Hmm.
come in. So, I don't need salespeople on the floor anymore. Robots and automation are taking care of 90% of that work.
Right.
So now there's an open door gone to where, the level that you would want to come in at needs some experience, needs some training, needs something. Now you've
Right.
got it that these
Well,
things
that's the
can be
thing.
scary to just try and make your peace
Yeah.
with, because everybody
Absolutely.
says, well, you have upward mobility available.
You do. You always do. And not only that, but there will always be other industries that start. You know what I mean? Like there's new industries all the time.
Right.
Ride sharing within the recent past wasn't a thing. Now that's a whole industry on its own that with competitive, companies
Right.
going about it. Same with the delivery. It used to be like just pizza, and then some Chinese places would deliver. Now everyone and their mother delivers, and before the pandemic too. I mean, not
Sure.
just as a yeah, not just as a
Sure.
consequence of that, but even before then. You know what I mean? Creating apps became a thing. People can make money doing that. Not that you
Oh,
necessarily will, but you can.
oh, that's
Um,
come to be a scary fucking market.
it's just an example, though. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying it's an
Sure.
example. I mean, there's always going to be new industries that open up, and if you can be ambitious and if you can learn a skill, you can do those things.
Right. Well, it's, and it comes back to my mindset that, the day and age that we're in, the number of people that we have in this country, um, it just becomes a harder sell, and it leaves such an open door for this kind of propaganda, this kind of talk about,
Yeah.
what should happen to the wealthy, the money
Well,
the
it's
wealthy
way
make, and
right.
you know,
It's way easier to point the finger at the wealthy for all of your problems rather than looking inside and figuring out
it's
what you need to do to be better. It's way easier just to sit around and be like, "No, it's that guy's fault. Nothing I can do about it. Just
it's
might as well
it's
accept it."
it's definitely fertile ground in the present day and age. It
Yeah,
really is. It's
it's because you're constantly flooded with propaganda saying you can't do anything. You're helpless. You're a victim, and it's just not true. It's simply not true.
well, but then we turn around and we have examples of, situations that occur that make us feel like we can't do anything and we are helpless, when
Sure.
they start shutting
Yeah,
down
yeah.
businesses, or when we can't even get an election right.
Well, that
you
goes
know
back to government. That goes
right,
back
but
to government,
right, and
which
so there's my question is, how much of this propaganda that we're seeing in the mainstream media is motivated by the government? um, you know
hmm
which, this kind of brings us into the topic that I, mainly wanted to talk about tonight, is just how much they are, you know, insinuating themselves into our lives. Um, because something happened this week with Tulsi Gabbard and uh, uh, Thomas Massey out of Kentucky, that I want to talk about. And it's in regards to the Patriot Act and FISA, which are two big things. The Patriot Act, not as much, except for the fact that it's the It's the foundation by which they've been doing a lot of free will stuff with the FISA Act. But I was looking into this because Ed brought it up on the show the other night, and I wanted to talk about it real quick. I will go to the chat real quick because Ed was saying, what was it? Our Elephant Man said, talking about the previous talk. He says cost of living is impacted most negatively by government regulations and inflation, which is the Fed printing money. Which I can
Yeah.
understand that. I mean, most of our price increases in inflation are going to be, like the oil price increase on everything, food involved and everything this last time around. That was, purely impacted by the federal government. They had everything to do with that.
Yep.
But Saint points out that the poverty line has climbed, but the poverty levels have been on a downtrend. Yes, I can agree with that. If we're looking at numbers, people were getting jobs and everything, that kind of thing in the early part of the year. But things have changed, and I'm still
Yeah.
waiting to see the repercussions of those numbers and what they've done, not necessarily to poverty levels, but how they've impacted us from an economic standpoint. Because I don't think all the numbers have fallen out the way where they should yet. Like we haven't gathered all the data we need. Um,
Right.
Ed says automation tanking an economy is a myth propagated by Chinese businessmen who are bad at math.
That's
I,
funny.
I would agree with you if Jeff Bezos was Chinese, but he seems to do pretty well with automation in those warehouses. He's got a lot of interesting automation ideas to
Yeah.
take care of stuff.
Yeah. How many people work for Amazon?
There's a few, yeah, but it's
Shitloads.
a global organization. Globally, the number's not that big when you think about it globally. To be honest
What
with you,
about
it's
just in
like
the U.S.?
800
That's it.
something thousand employees or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's quite a fucking
But
few.
that's globally. You know,
Okay,
out of eight,
that's a lot.
out of moving on towards 8 billion people, he's like, that's a very small percentage. But
That's
still,
like the size of a small city.
it could be considered a small city. I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
But he's making profit off of it, so whatever. But just think if he didn't have it automated, how many people he would hire. He'd probably be at
Oh
like
yeah, way more.
1.5 billion.
But it probably wouldn't be as good of a company, I would think.
So robots do the job better. I gotcha. Uh,
Well, yeah, they don't have to they don't have bathroom breaks or like lunch breaks, or they don't unionize. They don't have, they don't have children that they have to go home to every night. You know what I mean? Like, just less problems with them. They don't whine, bitch, moan, complain.
and then, of course, Ed makes the same point you did that automating jobs usually brings up others in their stead. But and that the car destroyed the manure scooping industry. Did it?
Yeah,
Is
it
that
did.
because it?
'Cause horses, when people would have horse-drawn carriages and stuff, the horses would
Oh, to
shit
clean up the
street,
roads.
and they would yeah, people would scoop the manure off the roads.
So gay. So gay.
I mean, it created jobs, right? It was probably mostly prison labor, depending on where and when we're talking about. But
Right, right.
yeah,
Because back in the
there
time,
also
a day when you
there
could
also
let
used to
prisoners
be
roam the streets.
there also used to be a guy that you could pay to come to your place in the morning and knock on your door and wake you up. The alarm clock kind of killed that, right? More automation. But yeah, there was a dude whose job it was to go around and knock on people's doors who paid him to wake them up for work.
So, but anyway, a lot of this idea of government involvement in our lives, you know, I don't know. I think a lot of people have gotten complacent and don't really pay attention to that involvement and how much it's destroyed the Fourth Amendment. And hopefully this move by Gabbard and Massey will get it in people's minds enough to broker more conversation. But basically, they have put forth HR 8970, which is a Protect Our Civil Liberties Act. And it's a bipartisan bill that would repeal the USA Patriot Act and amend the Foreign Intelligence
Uh,
Surveillance Act to
yes.
remove dangerous provisions that undermine American civil liberties. Now,
Fuck yeah. I
now
mean, I
what's
haven't read it, so I don't know if there's any sneaky shit in there, but
well,
on the face of
uh,
it, it sounds good.
Yeah. So here's what it would do. Here's what it hopes to do. It One, repeal the Patriot Act, which contains provisions allowing for mass telephone metadata collection. Two, repeal the FISA Amendments Act, which contains provisions allowing for mass email collection, except for provisions regarding FISA court reporting and WMD intelligence collection. Number three, makes retaliation against federal national security whistleblowers illegal and provides for the termination of individuals who engage in such retaliation. Ensures that any FISA collection aid against a U.S. person can only occur with a valid warrant based on probable cause, and that's a real big sticking point, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll mention why in a minute. Um, Retain the ability for government surveillance capabilities to be targeted against a specific non-U.S. person, regardless of the type of communications method being used. Uh, Retain provisions in current law dealing with the acquisition of intelligence information involving WMDs from entities not composed primarily of U.S. persons. Prohibit government mandated backdoors in electric devices or software that allow the government to bypass encryption and privacy technology. Increase the
Mm-hmm.
terms of judges on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court from 7 to 10 years and allow their reappointment. Mandate that the FISC utilize technologically competent technical and legal experts to help determine the veracity of government claims about privacy minimization and collection capabilities employed by them. So, in other words, get people that'll actually tell you what you're doing fucking up. Mandate that the Government Accountability Office regularly monitor domestic surveillance programs for compliance with the law. So, basically, incorporate oversight. Explicitly ban the use of Executive Order 12333 as a way of conducting surveillance on U.S. persons or mass collection of information. Now, so basically, a lot of this is about, there was a point in time where the Section 215 is the big sticking point from the NSA in regards to FISA, et cetera, because Section 215 um, allows for the collection of bulk records, part of which were phone records, and this became a point of contention back in 2018,
No.
and the by reforms in the USA Freedom Act, but basically the NSA was like, oh, well, this isn't really doing that much for us anyway. And then they said they suspended the use of it. But they suspended the use of bulk phone collection. They still had the ability, if they wanted, to go after web information and target things like this. Um, so there was a back and forth fight about trying to get revisions made to FISA, and how it was interpreting the Patriot Act, and saying that they could, bulk collect these web stuff if they without a warrant. Basically, they could bypass it without a warrant,
Yeah.
based off what the Patriot Act was allowing. Um, between the two. So the FBI, that was both NSA and FBI, didn't have to have warrants, which led to all the FISA bullshit that went on with the Steele dossier, et cetera,
Yep.
the TAPS, et cetera. But when it was all said and done, this back and forth, there were two different amendments that were tried to put forth on it. One that was basically just, a blanket stopping them from doing it, where another was, just demanding that there be a warrant, um, you know, with provisions for foreign situations, but none of it would get through. There was always somebody on one side or the other fighting, and it couldn't get to a vote, and so it was pretty much just overlooked. Um, now, one of the things that I did notice was that um, they wanted to carry over, they wanted to continue uh, they wanted to shut down the web provisions, et cetera, not being able to bulk collect information about internet usage. But the Trump administration supposedly very specifically wanted that extended. They wanted that to be to carry on, and now I don't know about the veracity of that, but supposedly that's a claim that the Trump administration wanted that to continue on and didn't want it to be shut down. Now, whether that's true or not, but they also said the same thing about the phone collection thing, that
Hmm.
the Trump administration specifically said that they wanted that to continue as well. I don't know, but that bothers me that anything to try and limit these have been stopped by one side or the other.
Right.
It can't get past to, put sufficient limits in place. Like the one with the phone collection, data collection, that kind of went through because, the NSA was like, oh, they basically they realized they were going too far, and they were like, oh, it wasn't doing anything for us anyway, so they stopped before, and then they make it, they say, okay, well, you can't do that. Okay,
Right.
well, that's just okay. Well, nice amendment, but okay, there it is. Um,
Right. Little too late kind of deal.
but yeah, to leave leave carte blanche to not have to have a warrant to collect this data is fucking crazy,
Yeah.
and so ultimately that's what this bill hopes to do. This act hopes to do is like just get rid of the Patriot Act altogether and limit FISA to, if it would require basically if it would require a warrant from a lower level enforcement agency, the FBI and the NSA must have the same warrants in place through probable cause to do it. And I don't see how that's how could anybody fight that? Now the Patriot Act. Now there comes the question: Are there is that going to be the part that gets this killed?
Probably. I don't expect anything to come of it. I mean, it's a nice gesture and all, but yeah, I expect there to be a Patriot Act for quite some time.
And that's what they have already conceded, like the NSA has conceded that they've over collected information, right? That
Yeah.
that they have and it's very clear that they have their fingers in so much pie. It's not even funny. I mean, the things that they're talking about, okay, that they're still capable of doing and that they still have access to, and it's all at a touch of a button, is tremendously disturbing. And and it's all because of the Patriot Act, yet that is supposed to be protecting us.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I
So,
hear.
I mean, do we if we get rid of the Patriot Act, do we disable the intelligence community enough to where they can't catch a terrorist cell, as it were?
I mean, yeah, I would always side on the side of liberty rather than safety.
That's a that's a hard pill for that would be a hard pill for a lot of Americans to swallow, though.
Yep, I
Would
know.
you agree? Um, I
I
mean,
would.
if you could just just this, I could already see, like, small protests happening from family survivors of 9/11. Survivor families of 9/11.
I
You
mean, they
know,
already got him, right? I mean, they got Osama, supposedly, allegedly.
yeah, but the Patriot Act protects us from that happening again. Of course it does, because they told us it would, right?
Right, actually.
And what's a little monitoring of your conversation?
A lot.
Um, but it's interesting that, as I was looking at this, that there have been so many times where the Patriot Act or FISA has been, someone has tried to limit it, but the aspect that was, whatever the limit was, certain ones, it really,
It's not.
the government on both sides doesn't seem to want it limited in that way. Um,
Real quick, I've only just checked. A while ago, Elephant Man donated 111 lemons. Once again,
111 lemons. That's awesome. I love that
one
number.
lemon, one ice cream, one diamond. Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
That
So
is
I don't check D
awesome.
Live that much because I have the whole chat. So yeah, I appreciate it, man. You're the best.
Um,
Sweet.
so I don't know. How do you you know how do you tell a present day population that you're going to protect them when you've got a generation of people that have grown up under the protection of the Patriot Act, as it were?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that a hard sell?
It is
Is
absolutely it
is
is.
is
Yeah,
it
because people will. And this is the problem is that people will complain about it, but they don't necessarily want to do anything about it. It's like,
um,
oh yeah, or they'll make jokes, and I've made jokes too. Which I mean, what else are you gonna do? No one person has the power to stop that. But
well, if so, do you think that this is doomed? Like there's no way this is going to pass because it's you would agree that probably a lot of the right and a lot of the left, primarily the left, but a lot of the right doesn't want to stop having that access
I would say
either,
it's probably mostly the Republicans.
that want to continue having the
Yeah,
NSA
I
watching
think
everything.
so. I know they'll talk about, and this is the problem with Republicans is they always talk about, yeah, we want smaller government, of course, and then they always make the government bigger. They're not really for small government. They just, pay lip service to it to try and get libertarians to vote for them and to make their base think that that's what they're going for. When really they're just expanding the government power just as much as Democrats do.
Um, so Elephant Man says once a box has been opened, it doesn't close again. Says this lends itself into my paradigm shift. He
Mm.
says the political dichotomy is incorrect. I'm not sure what he means by that.
That Republicans and Democrats are actually different.
Oh,
It's
that,
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a triangle with liberty at the top. Top, bottom right is stability, and bottom left is equity. Oh, gotcha.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I got you. Okay.
yeah. So and that's the I that's a problem I have. Like anytime when I listen to people make an argument that Donald Trump was fighting for the American people. He was fighting for our liberties. These kind of things because I've heard that argument, right? That he's trying to make things better for the American people. But at the same time, if he's like, even if his administration specifically were asking that provisions that were in, in FISA, et cetera, be continued as is versus, reauthorizing them and limiting them, well, that bothers me. I was like, maybe you need to look at little things like this. If that's what happened, that's a problem for this guy you think is trying to protect your liberties, right?
Hmm.
And then I look at and then I'm expecting Joe Biden to come into office, and I'm like, from this, I don't see him as fully protecting my privacy either, because a lot of the things that his policy, his agenda is going to do requires having a close eye on the people, right?
Hmm.
Like we got to monitor what's going on. We got to see that everything's going okay, and that and that you guys are not talking shit, and that you're being nice to everybody, and
Right.
don't
Or
forget
yeah.
we've got a lady in office now, so you got to watch your mouth.
That's right.
Ed says he doesn't see Biden as fully sentient.
Hmm.
Look, you know what? It's you know, I was thinking about this last night in our conversation. We were talking about all of this, with the election and everything, and all I kept thinking in my head was, no matter how fucking, how much we hear, in our echo chamber, outside our echo chamber, just bouncing off the walls throughout this country about what this country needs, and what should be happening, and revolution, and all of this, and yet still, our election for 2020 still came down to two old white men.
Yeah.
It's like nothing else matters in all of this if you except that one key takeaway. We're still at the same place we've always been, where the bulk of the American people are going to go with what's comfortable. And
Yeah.
what even if it's if even if it's a really off the chain old white dude, you know, it still stands to reason that that's what we target when we have all these options and we have all these things. Um, but I don't know. What if I told you that there's a small part of me that really believes that Joe Biden is a lot more conservative than
Oh yeah.
many people might imagine from where the stance he's taken? And when he goes into office, he might seem a little more Republican than he does Democratic. Or do you think he's just going to toe the line and
I
be
think
dangled?
it's I think it's more that uh, the Democrats have gone more left and left him behind. I don't think that he's changed all that much in his beliefs. I think that the party just kind of left him behind. There's the two factions in the Democratic Party, right? You got the neoliberals and you got the
Right.
progressives, and the progressives are what everyone sees as Democrats, but they're not the only ones there. There's also still the neolibs from the past fucking 60 years or whatever, and they're the ones actually running shit, and then occasionally tossing a bone to the progressives.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I mean, he belongs obviously to the neoliberals, and they're far more conservative than the progressives are, even though they're still
Well,
Democrats.
well,
I wouldn't even say they're not leftists, right? The neoliberals are not leftists. They're conservatives with want a safety net for people, basically.
well, I have to, Saints heading out for the night. Good night, Saint. Thanks for stopping by and
All right,
joining
see you,
us tonight.
Saint.
I'm always of a mind though, you have fewer people that become more progressive as they get older versus those who become more conservative. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not going to see change in the system by continuing to put old white people or older anybody in office. Mm, you're going to be catching them in their more conservative years, and even though they
Yeah,
might talk a good liberal game or a good progressive game to get elected,
yeah,
I don't know that you're going to see that progressiveness once they get into office. And that's same thing is holds true with Biden. I mean, look at Trump. Trump was the same way. I expected much more, you know, loose-handed, craziness from him from a policy standpoint. I just, granted he did do a few things here and there, but nothing like, what you expected with him, from the campaign, right? In the campaign, everything was just going to be turned on its fucking ear. And, now granted the Democrats and
well, that's
mainstream
because
media
you were
managed to
told that's what was going to
prevent
happen.
some of that, but
Well, no, it's more like they told you that was going to happen. They told you it was
well, he
doomsday.
he kind well he kind of gave us the impression that he was going to come in and just turn government on its ear, smaller
He did do a
government,
lot of
more.
that, though.
But again, it wasn't like he just came out with a six gun slinging presidential orders, executive order either, right? He didn't go crazy with executive order, although he may have been a little heavy handed at times,
Right.
in looking back. But nobody no he was more conservative in his presidency than I expected him to, than I thought he would have been from his campaign. But it just goes
Yeah.
to show that you really do have more conservative ideas and thoughts in your mind because you're old. You're getting old.
Yeah.
You've gone through a bunch of shit. You've been a part of the system for a long fucking time, and your death is imminent, right?
Yeah.
It's like what?
Yeah. And Elephant Man's right. Elephant Man here is right. Here where he says You mean as people accumulate wealth and are trying to set up their family, once they are gone, want the government to take less of their money? And conservatives are just progressives doing the speed limit. That's pretty true. They really are. That's why they don't try and like pass all these things, and eventually they change their mind. Like most conservatives don't really care about gay marriage anymore, right? Like that's like so 2008. No one cares for the most part, right? Obviously, you'll find outliers, but for the most part, it's not one of their concerns.
No, I would agree with that, but given the right narrative in at any given time, it can easily become a talking point and thus easily begin to be discussed and government start trying to fuck with it again. It's like what does it take anymore for a conversation to spur into some political back and forth, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's so easy these days. Um, but so my hope is, so I don't know how you go about it. If you go right now, the on Congress.gov, HR 8970, you can search it up and you can follow the actions that happen with it. They don't have the text of the act in on the site yet because it's still it goes to the Library of Congress. Uh, right after it's introduced on the floor, so a couple of days after, so there's a little bit of a delay, so it's not on fully on here yet, but I do
hmm
recommend following it, because it could, if they were to repeal the Patriot Act, that would go a very long way in restoring the Fourth Amendment, in my opinion.
yeah,
I mean, it would be a huge one, right? To
yeah,
where everything now, even from the federal level, has to be done on a warrant. It gets rid of all the Guantanamo Bay mentality of,
yeah,
what the government can do behind closed doors. What they're allowed to do, the horrific
yeah,
methods that that people see, talk about them using, whatever. Um, but I think that it's definitely, if it were to happen, it's going to catapult immigration once again into the spotlight, and we'll have to have the final conversation on immigration and make decisive action on it, because getting rid of the Patriot Act, you folks are going to be like, well, yeah, but you got to shut down some shit coming into the country then. It's like,
hmm
I mean, I'm of that opinion to a certain extent. It's like, okay, well, no, I don't want you watching everything, but I do want you watching the borders. Could you do that? Could you
right.
could you make that a little tighter? I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be
I
cool.
don't know. Just sorry we're closed. Lunch break. Be back at 2 p.m. And put that up and just forget you put it there. All right. But anyway, so wow, we've only been on here for an hour. But you know what? I kind of have some pressing other stuff. If you don't mind cutting it a little bit short tonight, John.
It's fine. Yeah,
We can talk about a little bit of other stuff. Before we go, we can, I've got a friend of mine does a daily lunch show during the week. That's on Mondays through Thursdays. I don't know if you're aware of this. It happens at 1 o'clock.
I didn't. I bet
Um,
he's a handsome man, though. I
uh,
bet you he's a handsome
well,
man.
he's, as long, don't get me
I
started.
mean, I'm not trying to be gay or anything. I'm just saying, you can appreciate a handsome man, like that. Nothing
Yeah,
wrong
I
with
can
that.
appreciate a handsome man, and I'm trying to avoid faking that right now. I'm just, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Elephant Man says we're slackers. We're not slackers. We're just old.
Yeah. Wait. Shit. Means I'm old too. I'm 30. I'm fucking. I'm
Yeah.
basically dead at this
Hey,
point.
if you want to blame anybody, blame John,
It's actually
because
not my fault.
because John, he alphabetically his name comes first
I mean, that's true.
by first
Unless
name.
we use last names.
Nobody
Yeah, by
knows my
first
last
name.
name.
Yeah, they do.
No, they don't. If you ask anybody right now what's my last name without
They
looking
probably won't
anything
know.
up, they wouldn't know what to
But
fucking
you've
tell you.
doxed yourself several times on the show.
Isn't that amazing? I've doxed myself lots of times, but I bet nobody knows it.
I bet
Because nobody
not.
cares about me, John. I'm unimportant.
Aw.
See, I'm
Everybody
unimportant.
give a virtual hug to Robert. He's
I don't
sad.
need hugs.
You
That's
do need hugs.
social distancing. Thank you.
Let us
Um,
in, Robert. Let us
um,
in.
I don't need you bitches. I can cry myself to sleep on my own. Uh, Elfman says, John, you got good 10 years left and 10 okay but declining years.
I'm aware. I'm
Yeah.
aware. I'm
Yeah,
aware.
because when you get to this point, yeah,
Yeah.
you can definitely tell
Just
which
shut it
what the
down.
what the slope of the hill is like now. It's like,
Got steeper.
whoa, well, you definitely take off your wheelies before you and when you hit 50, take them off. I suggest it. It's the only way to slow it down. But anyway, so yeah, that show, 1 o'clock. You know the guy that's doing it, don't you, John?
I
You
do.
you
It's me.
actually you actually watched this show or something, right?
I do this show. Yes, lunch break with John, Monday through Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Come check it out.
Wait, it even has your name in it. Lunch break
It
with John.
does with John. Correct.
I think you should call it bologna sandwiches with John.
I'm not going to control what other people have for lunch. They can have
No,
whatever
I'm
they
just
like.
saying it's a good name. It's just a
I don't think it
it's
is.
it's one of those. It's a name. It's different. It's bologna sandwiches with John. I mean, nobody eats bologna anymore, do they?
Probably.
I don't know. There's
You
one.
shouldn't, though. You
Uh,
shouldn't eat bologna. It's terrible. Terrible
is it?
tasting and terrible for you. Did you know that if you were to leave a piece of bologna on a car for, say, about a day, and you take that piece of bologna off, there'll be a permanent mark where the bologna was. You can't just wash off or anything. It's just constant. It's just always going to be there until you paint over it. That should tell you something.
Hmm.
Yeah. And yes, that's a specific example for a reason.
You did that?
No comment.
Did your parents get? How mad did your parents get?
It
No.
wasn't my parents' car.
Oh, okay. Lucky you, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I've had some German bologna that was really good. Now, if it comes from Germany, is it better?
Probably. I'm talking about like Oscar Mayer, like,
Our
you know,
processed shit, yeah.
you process shit, yeah.
Well, I'd much rather have salami anyway. Bologna, there's a lot of bad memories with bologna. Now, I do like fried
Yeah.
bologna, like Elephant Man says. I do like it occasionally. But my grandmother used to give us bologna. She'd take two pieces of bread and a piece of bologna and set it down, and that was just our lunch. If it
Oh,
was if it
fun.
was a very special occasion, she would put a processed slice of cheese food in it.
Oh
But
shit.
otherwise, it was just two pieces of bread and a piece of bologna for lunch.
One
You
slice
know,
of bologna?
one slice of bologna, two slices of bread, and
Damn.
that was your lunch break before you went back out and got back to hoeing and rowing and weeding and feeding.
Right.
So yeah, my brother gets sick just at the thought or the smell of
Shit,
bologna.
I would too.
He can actually
It's fucking
he'll
nasty.
vomit. You want him to vomit? Just wave bologna in his face. He'll puke right there on demand.
That'd be awesome. I'd
Yeah.
want to see it.
Right. Yeah, make sure and catch John on Monday through Thursdays. From what I hear, it's a very interesting show. I have
Sometimes.
I would attempt to watch it, but my cable provider doesn't carry it, so I haven't been able to see it yet. When it hits one of my streaming networks, I'm sure I'll pick it up and binge watch it. Uh, but outside of that, we are going to get the hell out of here, and we'll be back again on what is it? This is that. I mean, hey, John, what do you think? You want to fill the gap on Monday? You want to try that
Let's
again? See if we
fill
can do
that
something.
gap.
All right, so we'll be back to fill your gap on Monday. We'll do that at what? We're going to try 9:30 this time around,
Yeah.
something
Sounds
like
good to
that.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's shoot for 9:30. So
Yes.
9:30
So.
p.m. Go ahead.
Oh no, no. I didn't know if you were gonna get to it or not.
As far as
The instructions on
go
how to
to
submit
going to
videos.
Discord to our video submissions and submit funny
Yep.
videos that we can weed through and maybe post your video and our videos and show them on the filling the gap stream because it's just some laughter to fill the gap.
Yep.
Laughter is the best medicine, and if some of these are funny enough to make you laugh, then maybe we've done our part to help you feel a little bit better at the start of your week. And Monday's a good day for that. Mondays is usually a good day to get a couple of laughs in so
Yep.
that you don't, have a serious case of the Mondays.
Oh my god.
You've seen that movie,
Oh
right?
yeah, Office
Yeah.
Space. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like somebody's got
Somebody's
a
got
case
a
of the.
somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Yeah. He's like, why does everyone keep saying that to me?
All right, so that'll
um,
that fill in the gap will be 9:30 p.m. on Monday. Then we'll also be back for our regular rousing episode of Shooting the Shit on Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. as well. And then of course a week from now we'll be back again. What's today's date, John? Is this the 18th? We may
18th.
not be back next week.
You
Do
don't
you?
want to do a Christmas stream on
I
Christmas Day?
I don't know. Maybe we could. I don't know. Yeah, let's hype it up. Let's see if anybody's even going to be there. Yeah, let's do it. Maybe an hour on Christmas, just something, because it's family, and we'll have the granddaughter here probably.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure I'll be able to.
Well, we'll let you know. So we
Yeah,
may
yeah.
or may
Well,
not be back next
yeah,
Friday, but we'll attempt to be for, if nothing else, just a short, brief time to jump on and say Merry Christmas to everybody and talk about the wonderful gifts we bought for other people. But that'll be at 8:30 p.m. All of those times are in the Eastern time zone, the one and only true time zone, uh,
correct.
versus all the rest of you who are posers. We are going to get the hell out of here. John, thanks for stopping by. Folks, thanks for stopping by and giving us your support. John, before we do go, could you let these lovely people know where they can find us?
Yes, of course. Down in the description, we have links galore. We've got our Twitter, which is at the Gen Gap P. We got our Discord server, which is a lot of fun. I recommend it. Also, you can submit funny videos and get all the notifications for streams before they happen, just in case of YouTube fuckery. We've got our Subscribe Star. So if you have a passing affection for us, you can support us there and take advantage of the perks that we have available. And then we've got just Freedom Scoop, right? Yeah. I don't know why I keep thinking there's another one there. I don't know why. That's the second time that's happened.
Subscribe Star?
I already said subscribe. Sorry.
Did you?
Yeah, that
D
was the one that I said.
Live, Freedom Scoop,
Well,
Gen
yeah,
Gap, Discord. I don't know.
yes,
It's not
Freedom
like
Scoop.
you've done this before.
I know, right? I usually do it on autopilot, but I was thinking this time. Freedomscoop.com. You can find all of our stuff and other lesser unimportant creators like Jay Edgar and Stephen Ignoramus are over there. Wyatt from the Breakdown with Birkenhoff is over there. Already Conservative and the Freckles and Brit Show are over there. So make sure you go and check them out as well when you're not, saying our praises. And then while you're over there, you can buy our T-shirts and our mugs. We have both, and they're very nice, good quality. And if you put in the code GenGap at checkout, you can get 15% off your purchase. It's
15.
pretty awesome.
15.
15. It's pretty good.
All right. Do that, people. Find us. Talk to
Do
us. Reach out
stuff.
to us. Do things. We're going to get the hell out of here, as I said. So, John, I appreciate it, folks. Hit that like button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done it already. Thanks for all your love on D Live, all your lovely lemon love. And we will talk to you soon. See you on Monday. Peace out, everyone.
Yep, see you guys.
The war will begin.